So, to call your music with Periphery intense would be underselling it, in my view.
Sure.
It really is. Is that a style of music you've always played?
It is not a style of music that I've always played. I think I've always liked certain aspects of that style of music, and maybe, was played in bands that alluded to those little styles slightly, but never to the extent of what I do with Periphery. I really was never in a metal band for the most part. I played with some friends in a band that was kind of metal, but never did it seriously and always played other styles. So this band to me was kind of new territory. But I love it now because I can sort of meld everything I learned elsewhere into this more aggressive and, as you said, intense kind of style. But I've always played with, I think, a lot of intent when I get on stage.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it means that I make stupid faces and I can't control what's going on in my body. But it's fun stuff to play for sure. So it's great.
I quite like that though. I think, 'cause when John Bonham played, he used to grunt to himself and make all kinds of noises.
I make crazy, like I hear myself like making like noises when I'm playing. I don't realize I do it, but my jaw will crack this way and that way. But when you're playing this style, it has to be very accurate in terms of the movements.
Yes.
And rather than have to sit back and control every little bit of my body to make sure that those things work, I'd rather be loose. I'd rather be more relaxed and play with whatever feeling I have. So with that in mind, instead of compromising my arms, my face just takes the brunt of all the stress in my body.
That's okay then, because we only hear the noise of
there
every
you
drum,
go.
so that's all right.
It's cool.
So obviously that level of playing that you have doesn't emerge, fully formed. There must be a path to it. And you mentioned some of the other styles that you played. So what were you playing before you joined Periphery?
I grew up, playing all sorts of different styles. It was mostly like footed in rock music, I think, initially. My father was a big fan of bands like Judas Priest, Metallica, Queensryche. So I had, more of an exposure to rock bands that were a bit more progressive. But then at the same time, I grew up listening to Hall & Oates.
Yes.
And music that was more, really a complete different direction than the heavier stuff. So I was exposed to that at a young age, and I played in different bands where, whether it was top 40 cover gigs, playing in bars with people that are just there to have a good time, and everything from that to doing studio sessions where I might be cutting like a 20-second commercial piece. So really, I've studied bits of jazz, bits of different kind of world music, but it's always been rooted in the fusion of all of those things based around more of a rock style. I guess it's always been in that area.
Yeah.
But I like to be versatile, and I like to be challenged to play new styles, and I think that's what happened with Periphery. It was when I first started, I never ever thought I would be in the band. I was a fan of the band before I joined, and I just kind of tapped out the rhythms because they were interesting, fun, but I never thought I'd be playing it. And then once I kind of sat down to play it, I was a bit intimidated at first because I'd never really played that kind of aggressive, like I said, that style. But I think because of my ear for fusion and the time the amount of time I've listened to more complex or progressive music, it was a bit more accustomed to it. So I've managed to take all these crazy different random styles that I played over time and put them into what I'm doing now.
Yeah, I think no education is wasted, no different style is wasted. It probably feeds into your play, even if you don't necessarily know why or where, it still does.
Exactly.
It still feeds in there.
Exactly,
So,
yeah.
I'd like to talk about your current kit and why you chose it.
Sure. The kit for the London Drum Show specifically?
Whichever you play when you're normally on the road or in the studio.
Well, that's a great question, or a couple things there that are interesting. So, for the past 2 records, and even for today at the London Drum Show, I was playing a kit where it's predominantly kick, snare, 2 floor toms. So that's what I played today. I'll change it up to where maybe it's either 1 floor tom other days, so and the cymbals selections change, but I've always kept it smaller initially because when I first started playing in Periphery, I was doing a lot of side gigs where I was in like the corner of a room, like a bar, playing kick, snare, hat, and 1 cymbal, and having to be dynamic with that, and I was able to be really creative with that gig. So when I started playing with Periphery, my practice kits at my house were just these small little kits. So the guys would come over, they would play, they didn't even realize I was playing a small kit, and once they did, they were like, wait, that's really cool, you should keep doing that, let's record the album that way and everything. So that actually stuck for a while. And I like it, I really like playing on a smaller kit because of the the creative outlet that it is. I mean, it allows you to be more creative because you have less to play with and less things to work with, you know. So over time, I was able to actually sculpt out, like, if I'm going to play that kit, what's my sound? What specific cymbals am I going to use? What specific size drums am I going to use? And I've really experimented a lot with that. So in terms of that side of it, I'm now pretty set on what I'm doing. I can talk about that in a second. But now that we're coming into our third record, we wanted to do something. I really wanted to do something where I could utilize the types of kits I used to play, which were a little bit bigger, 5-piece or 6-piece, sometimes 3 times up front, two down. But we recorded this new record with 2 times up front. It's a 7x10 and then an 8x12, all Mapex Saturn, Saturn 4s. And then the 4 times are 14x14 and 14x16. And then the kick drum that we recorded with that album was a 16x22, so it's a bit shallow to get that really punchy, bassy sound. But live, I'll typically use a 20x22 or an 18x22. It kind of changes. But I've wanted to expand it out, you know. And now that we're going to be heading out on the road supporting this new record, I really want those sounds in the live setting too. So my set is always changing. That is the moral of the story. I'm kind of telling you that with so many words.
Yeah.
And then as far as what I'm using specifically, I could just give you a brief rundown. I mean, I play vinyl cymbals. For the majority, I fell in love with their Byzance line of cymbals. So anything from the dark crashes, dark rides, to the vintage stuff, to the jazz stuff even, that's really where I tend to find my sound, and I think it works really well for the band because of those darker tones and the overall kind of vibe of the music too.
Yeah.
And then the drums, I've also fell in love with the Saturns, Mapex Saturns. Saturn 4s are fantastic. Those drums are just punchy and powerful, and they sound great. And then I've been working with Mapex to develop a snare drum, which I can't fully say anything yet.
Okay.
But that's something that's in the works, and it's just been great working with them. And then Evan's drum heads, we were very particular on this album to experiment for months beforehand with different head, positioning, or different head types and the tunings of them, and we set on something that now me and my bass player, who's actually the producer in the band,
right.
We stick to, and we're pretty consistent with now when we play live. So the tunings, the heads, Evan's heads, Permark sticks, it's all very consistent.